What if I told you that in just 10 years you could stop working? Not by winning the lottery, not by already being wealthy, but by setting up a system where your money works harder than you do. Most people don't realize they're already holding the engine that could free them, but they quit before it switches on. In this video, I'll give you a clear 10-year roadmap and the simple clock that makes your progress measurable. Before we go further, drop a quick comment with your age or whether you've started investing, because knowing where you stand matters. And later, I'll reveal the tipping point when compounding shifts from tiny to unstoppable. But first, let's ask why so many people stay stuck working decades longer than they actually need to. Most people remain tied to decades of work, not because financial independence is impossible, but because those first years of building wealth feel discouraging. At the start, every dollar relies entirely on your effort, your labor, your discipline, your sacrifice, and the results look almost invisible. That imbalance between effort and outcome convinces many that the system doesn't work, when in reality it's still gathering momentum. It's easy to assume early retirement is only for the wealthy or the unusually lucky. If you grew up believing only high earners or lottery winners could quit working early, it feels natural to dismiss the idea altogether. Then, once you start saving and the numbers barely move, it seems to confirm that belief. The truth is, the early phase feels slow because you are still the engine. There's no momentum yet, so progress runs on your contributions alone. Let's break it down. Suppose someone earning a modest paycheck saves $400 every month. After 10 years, that's about $48,000 before growth. Respectable, yes, but when stacked against a retirement horizon 30 or 40 years away, it feels almost meaningless. Compared to the traditional story of saving slowly until 65, this money looks like a drop in the ocean. That sense of futility is what drives people to stop, even though they're closer than they think to a turning point. The best way to understand this stage is with the snowball image, pushing one uphill. Each step requires strain, sweat, and focus. The weight drags on you, growth looks tiny, and nothing about it feels worth the struggle. Add to that the noise of daily life, friends spending freely, family questioning why you'd bother, markets rising and falling, and the frustration deepens. Markets can be volatile early on, which is precisely why patience matters. The process feels harder not because it's broken, but because it's doing the groundwork that every system needs before compounding takes over. Take Sarah's story as an example. At 28, she set the goal of leaving her job by 40. She committed to saving $500 a month. For 3 years, she stayed on track, avoiding dinners out, driving an old car, even working freelance gigs. After all that discipline, she had just under $20,000. To her, sacrificing for years only to see such a small total felt pointless. Everyone around her seemed to be enjoying life while she remained focused on an account balance that looked trivial. She nearly gave up. Here's the important insight. That modest balance was not a failure. It was exactly what the system required. Those years built the foundation. The money she saved was the base that would allow compounding to begin. Her dollars were now strong enough to start earning their own dollars, and that shift, when growth no longer depends only on you, is the moment everything changes. This is the fragile bridge most people never cross, the very point where discouragement convinces them to stop when they are finally on the edge of making real progress. So the real question becomes, what is that tipping point, and how close are you to it? Understanding where that shift occurs is critical. Without it, the early years appear empty, when they're actually the necessary first stage of freedom. With it, you recognize that each dollar saved is setting the clock for doubling. And once you see how that doubling works, what once looked invisible finally becomes measurable. Because if you could predict how long it takes for your money to double, the whole process becomes a clock you can follow step by step, and that clock is what we turn to next. Most people don't realize there's a simple way to estimate exactly how long it takes for their money to double. Instead of feeling like the market is just tossing random numbers at you, you can use what's known as the early retirement clock, the Rule of 72. It's remarkably simple. Take 72 and divide it by your average annual return. The result tells you how many years it takes for your money to double. Here's what it looks like. Let's say your investments average 10% a year. 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2. That means on average your money doubles roughly every 7 years. Imagine you start with $50,000. After the first cycle, about 7 years later, you have $100,000. Stick with it for another 7 years, and it grows to $200,000. 7 years after that, it becomes $400,000. Each cycle feels slow at first, but the leaps get larger and larger, and the weight of compounding shifts from tiny gains to massive jumps. The key here is that the Rule of 72 isn't a guarantee. It's a forecasting tool. Markets rise and fall, but the formula gives you a reliable way to estimate how time and returns interact. The real danger is waiting too long to start. Missing just one cycle can double your overall timeline. That's not a small delay. It can mean the difference between freedom at 45 and grinding until 60. Lost time compounds against you just as powerfully as money compounds for you. Think about the impact of stacking multiple cycles. Starting with $50,000 and completing 4 doubling cycles turns it into roughly $800,000. Add a 5th cycle, and it clears $1 million. That's the math that allows people to do in 2 or 3 decades what most spend 40 years trying to achieve. It also shows why getting started sooner gives you so much leverage. Every extra cycle you capture shortens the path by years. Let me pause for a second here. As you're listening, ask yourself silently, how many cycles can you realistically fit in over the next 10 years? That mental calculation alone can completely change the way you think about time, money, and freedom. Here's how it looks in practice. Consider Michael, who in his 30s invested $60,000. After 7 years, with consistent returns, he had about $120,000. At first, that felt almost unreal because the years crawled by slowly. But then the next cycle doubled his balance again from $120,000 to $240,000. The amazing part? His effort hadn't changed. He wasn't working longer hours or saving more aggressively. The system itself began accelerating. By the time he reached that second doubling, he realized the growth in his wealth was outpacing his contributions. And that's when compounding truly flips from frustrating to exciting. This is why thinking of the Rule of 72 as your personal clock is so powerful. Each doubling cycle isn't just about watching numbers climb. It's about converting years of labor into years shaved off your working life. In this clock, the ticks aren't hours at a desk. They're returns multiplying on themselves while you stay consistent. Every completed cycle is like crossing off a chunk of working years you'll never have to give away. The beauty is that early retirement no longer feels like a vague dream once you understand this framework. The Rule of 72 turns it into something measurable, something you can track like a countdown. But here's the reality. Knowing the clock exists isn't enough. If your contributions are too small, the cycles won't carry you to freedom. Which means the next challenge isn't just waiting for doubles. It's finding ways to fuel the engine harder so those cycles work at full strength. Saving alone will never compress decades of work into a single decade. To get there, you need a 2-part strategy: offense and defense. Offense is how you expand the amount of money flowing into your system. Defense is how you keep that money from leaking out into lifestyle upgrades that slow your progress. Together, they control how much fuel your wealth-building engine has to run on. Here's why this matters. Let's start with a simple case. Say you earn $4,000 a month and follow the typical advice to save 10%, or $400. Over a year, that's $4,800. Stick to it for a decade, and you've set aside $48,000. With a 10% annual return, the account grows to around $77,000. While that's progress, it's far from enough to buy back years of freedom. The takeaway is clear. If you rely on savings alone, you'll move forward, but not nearly fast enough. This is why offense matters so much. Offense is about creating more space for contributions to grow. That can mean earning promotions, developing higher income skills, or building side businesses that add new streams. If you raise your income from $4,000 to $6,000 or even $10,000, the shift is dramatic. The same 10% savings rate now puts thousands into the system each month, not hundreds. Over 10 years, that difference multiplies into hundreds of thousands of dollars gained. But offense on its own isn't enough if defense fails. Defense is the discipline of locking in your lifestyle. The rule is simple. When your income goes up, your expenses stay flat. If you once lived on $3,600 a month, you keep living on $3,600 even when your paycheck grows. The gap between your earnings and expenses becomes pure investment fuel. Here's a practical example from the research. Imagine one person sticks with a $4,000 salary and saves 10%. After 10 years, their account grows to about $77,000 with compounding. Compare that to someone earning $10,000 a month but still living on $3,600 just like before. The difference? Their account hits roughly $193,000 in the same period. That's over double, simply because they played both offense and defense at the same time. To make defense easier, try this experiment. For the next 12 months, every time your pay increases, whether from a raise, bonus, or new income stream, automatically invest it. Don't let it hit your spending account. Treat every new dollar as if it were a worker joining your team. Each worker either builds wealth or disappears buying things you don't really need. Your job is to assign them to permanent roles in your investment system. And that's the key shift in perspective. Each time you earn a raise or create an extra stream, you're hiring more workers for your financial team. If you let lifestyle creep absorb that gain, you're sending those workers home before they ever contribute. But if you assign them to your investments, they never sleep, they never quit, and they never stop compounding. So while saving is foundational, the bigger breakthrough comes from balancing both sides. Grow your offense to bring in new income. Strengthen your defense by holding your lifestyle steady. Those two strategies combine to accelerate the clock you're on. More contributions create more doubling cycles, and that speed is what can take decades off your working years. Ask yourself this: which one raise or new income stream could speed your timeline the most? Because once you identify it and protect it, the question becomes how you structure those growing contributions into a system that keeps working whether you clock in or not. To make those growing contributions work, you need a structure that doesn't just build up once, but keeps running like a machine. That's where the three-layer model comes in: growth assets, income producers, and stability assets. Each plays a distinct role, and when you put them together, you create a system designed to endure for the long run. Start with growth, the engine. This layer pushes your money beyond inflation and steadily builds wealth. The core tools here are broad index funds, along with selected dividend-paying and growth stocks. These drive capital appreciation and ensure your portfolio grows over time. Without them, your savings risk losing purchasing power, and what seems like enough today could feel small years later. But relying only on growth has a flaw. The market doesn't rise in a straight line. Relying on growth alone means in down years you'd be forced to sell at the worst possible time. That's why the second layer exists: income producers. These are assets like REITs, dividend stocks, and rental properties. Their strength is simple but powerful. They pay you even when markets swing. Every dividend or rent check either supports your living expenses or gets reinvested for more growth. That income layer keeps the system running without forcing you to cut into your long-term core holdings. The third layer is stability. These are treasury bonds, high-yield savings accounts, and small gold position. They aren't designed for eye-catching returns, but they protect you when volatility hits. Think of them as shock absorbers. When stocks sink, this layer gives you liquidity and prevents the single biggest danger, being forced to sell valuable assets in a downturn just to cover expenses. It's deliberately steady because protection is what keeps the rest of the machine alive. One often overlooked safeguard is currency diversification. Depending entirely on a single economy and currency can expose you to risks you don't see coming. Setting aside a small percentage of assets in international markets or stronger currencies, such as the euro or Swiss franc, gives you an added layer of resilience. It's not about chasing returns. It's about making sure a downturn in one financial system doesn't undo years of progress in yours. Together, these three layers work like a vehicle. Growth is the engine, income is the fuel system, and stability is the brakes and control. Remove any one and the system becomes weak or unstable. Keep all three working together and your portfolio has the balance to endure market ups and downs while it continues to compound. There's one final principle that keeps the machine in motion. Even after you reach financial independence, reinvest at least some of your passive income. Setting aside just 10 to 20% of your dividends or rental income back into the system ensures your portfolio continues to outpace inflation. This step extends the life of your wealth and helps it grow long after traditional contributions stop. That's the essence of the three-layer money machine: growth to build, income to sustain, stability to protect, plus a habit of reinvesting a share so it doesn't shrink over time. Once you set it up, compounding doesn't just work by chance, it works by design, no matter which way markets move. And here's the challenge you'll face. The framework itself is straightforward, but the test is sticking with it long enough for the results to appear. The hardest part isn't the math, it's resisting the urge to interrupt it before the tipping point arrives. So what does this all mean for you right now? It means your next steps are clear. First, start as soon as possible so you don't miss doubling cycles. Second, grow your income while keeping your lifestyle steady. Third, build a three-layer portfolio: growth, income, and stability, and reinvest part of the passive income it generates. Every dollar you invest today is a silent worker that never clocks out, never asks for a raise, and never calls in sick. Calculate your monthly investable amount today and commit to a simple 12-month experiment. Put every raise or bonus directly into investments. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe for more tactical strategies, and drop a comment with either your monthly investable amount or your target retirement year.